Welcome to Passion Perspectives and Creating Opportunities. Thank you for having me. Okay, next. I think most everyone knows me, but just in case you don't, I'm a composer that works at the intersection of music and art, nature and culture, mostly nature and culture. I'm a voracious reader and I'm inspired by many things in many places. I'm an avid hiker, and many of my works are inspired by different places. I've just done a recording of a piece in North Cascades National Park, so I'm really looking forward to that. I've created work in many ensembles for chamber, orchestra, wind band, jazz, choir, etc. And my favorite is large ensemble and chamber ensemble. So what started this is I've been working with a lot of people, and they've asked, well, how do you decide where you're going with your music? I mean, I started composing when I was 9 years old. Of course, I was just having fun, right? I didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go. When I was a little bit older, I saw Star Wars. I decided I wanted to be a film composer, and then I found out that's very complicated, and that never happened. But you have to decide what your goals are. So how do you get there? And some people have a hard time figuring out, well, what do I write about? And I don't think that's a big problem here in Cascadia. Everybody seems to have something they want to write about, but I've noticed it a lot of other places. Okay, next. So what do we want as composers, and how do we get there? Well, take baby steps, a little bit of introspection. And again, it's really tiny habits and tiny behaviors. Sitting down after breakfast, for instance, or whatever part of your day is the most productive. I'm productive in the morning, not at night, and other people are the other way. And I have to tell you, everybody knows Lisa Nair, right? She is the best. She does this wonderfully. She's presented fabulous videos on networking, connecting with performers. She's got a new consortium out, and I'll show you her page in a minute. You look at her calendar is full of performances. Mine is kind of blank for the next couple of months, but it's something we all work on. But she's very, very good at networking, connecting with people. Next. I mean, this is her March events. Really? Okay. Well, how do we get from where we are to there? Okay. We're going to extend on the thread that she talked about as far as networking and how do you meet people and how do you connect with people and how to compose in alignment with your passions. And what it can do is by aligning with our passions and our viewpoints of the world and how we see the world, that purpose can lead us to creating opportunities. So what are you passionate about? What do you want to express? Do you have a particular purpose, or is just simply the act of creating its own purpose? Okay, next. This got crazy in the transfer. It was aligned. But these are just some things I put up. So here's where I want some of the interaction and the dialogue. So what on this list or not on this list are things that you are all passionate about? No, don't go back to, I want people to talk.
Well, nature and hiking and I don't see geology, but it could be there.
That'd be a great one. I've actually written a geology piece, but I forgot about that.
You're in a great part of the world for it.
Yeah, I know.
Columbia River basalt. Write a piece
I
about
know.
Columbia River basalt. Poetry, literature. Somebody else's turn.
Social justice and human rights.
Pardon me, what'd you say?
Social justice and human rights, which are listed twice, by the way.
I do have them listed twice. I do. Must be because it's really important.
I like that currently focusing on different cultures, but I've also focused on literature and a lot of different things, and sometimes just on theory, some type of theory, and seeing where it goes. So yeah, and counterpoint point is, yeah, I really like counterpoint.
I do too. I remember in grad school, it's like, okay, write, a 18th century counterpoint piece, right? Make it sound like Bach, or a piece in the style of Hindemith, or, I like those types of exercises. So sometimes I'll give myself exercises just to practice learning how to write in a certain way. Okay.
Well, let me speak up in that case for harmony.
Yeah.
If you can love counterpoint, you can love harmony, and I certainly do. I certainly do.
Yes, and there's so many different types of harmony.
Yes.
And,
yes.
And to keep the harmony within the scope of the composition and not change it so that it's so westernized that it's not in the original scale or mode or whatever. That's a
no need to stick to what it says in Schoenberg's theory of harmony.
Schoenberg's theory.
There's a author that I like, and I wasn't exposed to this until after graduate school, and it's really geared toward undergraduates. It's called Sound Reasoning by a composer named Anthony Brandt. And it has the 30,000-foot view, but it drills in to specifics, but on a very understandable level. And he really geared this to just, it's kind of like a beginner class, but it's how do you analyze form? How do you analyze harmony? How do you analyze different things? And, he talks about transforming and, taking the music and transforming it over time. And he has this one thing he calls the sound of music principle. And it's where you have a piece that starts one way and you end it in another place, just like Sound of Music, how it starts and how it ends. So that's a piece I'm working on right now, is that kind of form where you're starting in one place. And to your point, Jeff, with one kind of a dark harmony, and then it's going to end up in a much sunnier place. So, okay, next. Thank you. So a perspective is a point of view. And you think about this, and we all tend to put our own point of view, how we see this, how we observe it. And we humanize things that aren't human. So how do we, my piece, Life of Ashes for the Wilderness Act, was from the point of view of the animals and plants that lived on Mount Adams, from the ground, from the heat of the fire, from the 2012 fire. What was the last one? 2018 that they had another fire up there. So who is the owner? Is it yours or is it somebody else? And are you the observer? And where are you located in the perspective? Are you high? Are you low? Is it beneath the ground? Is it underground, like Jeff, like that basalt? Yeah, like that basalt. Is it tactile? Is it sharp, like the lava fields in Central Oregon, or is it breezy like grasses in a prairie? What sounds are heard and who hears them? So is it you hearing the sounds, or is it a bird hearing the sounds of something? Is weather a factor, rain or whatever? So how does that feel? I always wondered how cows feel in a rainstorm, right? It's like, do they get cold? Do they feel bothered by being so wet? So, what is that perspective? Okay, next.
Oops.
Oh, we went too
Sorry
far.
about that. Were
One
we
more,
here?
one more back.
Okay.
Okay. So there's feelings and thoughts and emotions. And I only have a couple of things here, and it could go on and on and on. So when you have your feelings, I mean, how do you feel about a place or a thing or a social justice issue? You know, when you see people being mistreated, you know, do you feel angry? Do you feel sad? You know, how do you feel, and how do you put that into your music? And then, you know, all sorts of thoughts. When we're talking about literature, how does that make us think? What kind are you writing for the perspective of the character or the protagonist or the antagonist, or you for someone else who's in the book? You know, there's all sorts of thoughts and emotions that go into it. And then what does it, from your viewpoint, represent or remind you of? Is there something? I remember I did this piece and somebody was like, you know, that section sounds just like Debussy. Nobody's going to be able to hear it without thinking Debussy. They're going to think you're not very original. So I didn't hear it at all. Okay, you have a whole tone scale. That doesn't mean I'm imitating Debussy. So it's just, but it's from your viewpoint or from somebody else's viewpoint. You know, what is it going to remind you of? You know, most of us hear, but okay, half step. You know, we're all thinking Jaws, right? So, you know, I'm not going to start off a piece going, but up, right? Because everybody's going to think of Jaws. So, but whose feelings and thoughts and emotions are impacted? Okay. So it's not just your own, but who else's feelings and thoughts and emotions. And then coming back to you, Liz, you know, the beliefs, you know, thinking about from different cultural points of view or incorporating different people's traditions. So I had a piece on for Cottonwood Canyon. I was composer in residence when that opened. And one of the things is this was a ranch, 103-year-old ranch, and the Park Service was like, oh yeah, we got to celebrate this ranching life. Well, it is adjacent to the Warm Springs Reservation. And the John Day is very, very important to, you know, the tribes of the Warm Springs. So I went and I said, okay, how can I incorporate the history and your perspective with, and still fulfill the state parks desire to have something about ranching? You know, how can I do that? And the decision was that the river was like the heartbeat through the land. So I have a drum and it's like bum bum, bum bum, bum bum. And it's through a large part of the piece. And in many cases, you don't really hear it. It's very soft, just like your heartbeat. You don't really hear it, but it's there. So that's one way to put perspective and beliefs into a piece. Okay. And intent. What do you want to convey to the audience? Do you want to be persuasive? Do you want them to agree with you? Or is it simply music to be experienced? Is there some sort of connection? What I find so interesting is what I intend is sometimes so different than what the audience perceives. Do y'all have that same experience? Yes, no?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I have it. Oh, sorry, Jeff.
Oh, I was just going to say that I had a choral piece where it was Hafiz on a condensed version of a Hafiz text. It was about love and this, that, and the other thing. And this fellow kind of buttonholed me after the concert and started going on about how it reminded him of his favorite science fiction novel, and this happened and that happened. And I was just happy to, you know, sit there and listen to him. It was fun to listen to him, but it had absolutely nothing to do with any intent that I had. But that's fine. Let's
And
find
that's
out. I want
fine,
people
yeah.
to get different things out of it.
And I had something similar, only it didn't work out quite as well when I was doing my master's in composition. And I've written many pieces reflecting my viewpoints towards a lot of literary things, but Cummings is my favorite. So I had a Cummings piece, and it was quite successful. And the teacher, the professor, in front of the class and everybody, he had brought in someone to help us write our music, and I'm not quite sure what he says, but he said, "But this is all wrong. You didn't write it right." And he was just going on and on and on. I says, "Okay."
Oh my God, floor, please open up
Yeah,
slowly.
but I didn't have to say a word because the class was in uproar, and even the visiting speaker said his piece. I didn't have to say anything in defense. Anyway, a composer.
Why I don't like master classes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Oh gosh, yeah. I don't know what to say after that.
I still laugh about it because there's nothing else you can do. Here's a composer saying something like that. Anyway.
Oh, so they can be vicious. I went to a thing with Martin Bresnik at the Bach Festival, and he was ruthless. He ended up liking my piece, but there were some people he was not as kind to. But anyway, so I had a piece at the Columbia Arts Center. It was the same wilderness piece, A Life of Ashes. And the trees in the forest were so burnt. You've seen the gray stands of fired trees, wildfire trees, but they were so burnt, they were blackened on the outside and they were hollow on the inside. So I used a wood block, to say the trees are hollow, right? Oh, you captured the black-backed woodpecker perfectly. It's the first bird to come back after a fire. Oh yeah, I knew I was going for that. So yeah, like you, Jeff, sometimes I just have to listen and just, okay, they're hearing something I didn't, but it's cool. That's because that makes people connect to it, right? And then what about topics that are more conceptual? That's a lot harder. And it's really hard sometimes if you just are trying to talk about the universe, so it's a little more different. And then sometimes there's a call to action. So I'd done a piece after George Floyd, I did a piece and start out as a horn solo, then a horn quartet, then a saxophone quartet that uses the rhythms of all the different protests, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and I took 8 different names and then I interwove them. And, that was probably the closest I've had to a piece where I had a call to action. This is terrible. These are all these people. These are all these names, go to a protest, do something, So that was probably the most I've ever had where it was a call to action. I guess indirectly, when I write about national parks or nature or whatever, I think subconsciously there's probably a call to action to, protect these places and to revere these places. And so there are subconscious things on my part. And that's why sometimes the intent that we're consciously aware of gets, not misconstrued, but it allows room for other people to have other interpretations. What else is perspective? So I'm opening it up to questions. Any other thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that part of perspective is who your audience is. So that's going to really, make a difference in how you write and what you're writing. And yeah, so part of your perspective is also, what is the, whether your motivation to compose music comes primarily from outside sources, or whether it's just this instinctual thing to do. And then whether you're just drawn to the materials of music and shaping them and creating forms, and sort of intuitively it's connected. But I think that's where, when people have completely different interpretations of what your music means, that happens to me a lot when I haven't been thinking, I might have had one idea that kind of generated the piece, but from that point on, it's really just musical. I'm just working with the musical materials. And I know that not every composer does that, but I'm not like trying to create a narrative according to things happening and I'm going to make the music match with that. I'm just thinking, how does this work with the tension and the building and musically? And then people will have, they'll, if you feel that it's connecting, that it has the right impetus, and then generally it seems like the listeners connect too. But listeners, different audiences have such different experience levels for what they can process. So I think that's a big part of the perspective.
Anybody else?
Sometimes it happens to me that the meaning of what I'm doing starts to be revealed towards the end of the creative process. And then I say, oh, so this is what's hidden here. And then I go back and look again at everything and make it a little bit more intentional. I don't know if that happens to other people, but it happened to me a few times.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, I think some of it is subconscious, that we're, Mahler's Ninth Symphony. I don't know if he really intended to write as sad a symphony as it is. I think it's just what his life was experiencing at that point in time when he wrote it. So I think a lot of it came out in the music. So I think sometimes what's going on in our lives seep through. Was it Corigliano who, when he wrote Red Violin, was right after his father died, and there were some sections that were pretty sad there. So anything else? Yeah, Dawn, thank you very much. I really like that, because that's some things that sometimes I don't know who the audience is going to be. If it's a commission, it's easy because but often you don't know who it is. For like the state park piece, I had no idea except for maybe park attendees. I really didn't know who would be attending, who would the audience be, except for maybe people who also love the park. So, okay. So I put this at the heading, but it's luck favors the prepared. It's hard, but it's how do we become prepared in order for opportunities to find us? We go to school, we study, we spend our 10 years writing as much as we can to get all the ugly stuff out of the way, we hope. But how can we encourage being more prepared to give ourselves opportunities? Okay. So yeah, how does passion and perspective help us to prepare ourselves. I think it's understanding ourselves. I got something in my notes here real quick. If you don't mind for a second, I'm going to just go to my own little notes here. I guess part of it is when we're passionate about our music, you know, or when we're enthusiastic, it can be contagious. Passion can lift our insecurities. It can change our little behaviors when we're passionate about stuff, so that we do things with intent and purpose that we might shy away from. I'm a very shy person. I'm a little bit insecure. And so when you're passionate about it and you really consider the perspective, and to your point, Dawn, when you consider the audience, you know, maybe people, it can change the dialogue from that's interesting to maybe I should take a listen. It helps to start a conversation. So I think I covered that one already. Next. Okay.
Did you mean to go on?
Yes, I just accidentally clicked something wrong. So part of it is create compelling pieces. You know, I'm one of those people that have to compose. Whether I have a commission, whether I don't, I have to compose all the time. I just have to. And I think when you really work to focus on creating compelling pieces, then you make connections. Okay, go ahead. One thing, okay. So these are works that I believe have passion and perspective. And I'm using Dawn as an example, her piece for life. Dawn, you want to talk about this since you are here?
Yeah, sure. So in some ways, For Life was something that I would not have composed out of my own just to do it. I would not have done that. But it came, I already had established this relationship with the Cleveland Opera director, and he had talked to me about commissioning me to compose an opera on the opioid epidemic. At that time, I had no knowledge of that issue. I wasn't really even very interested in the project, so I forgot about it. And then when I met with him a couple of years later, in between, I had become aware of the problems with benzodiazepines, and he brought up the opioid opera again, and I said, this should be an opera about other medications because nobody knows about it. And I had never, I didn't consider myself an activist composer, but especially with opera, because there's a text and it's theatrical, I think that it is a really great way to show perspectives of different issues and to develop awareness. So, so we discussed this, and this then turned into a commission for the Cleveland Opera. And then COVID hit, so then Scott developed a whole program of mini operas that were actually video recorded. And since I had already started working with the librettist, and this was originally supposed to be a full opera, but we condensed. So it was only about 30 minutes. And then this festival of mini operas was performed. Well, it aired because it was they were all recorded under COVID protocol, which was really rough. But there were nine different composers. And on the night that my For Life was performed, the others were mostly shorter, like 10 to 15 minutes. And I think Libby Larson and Jean Shear were on the program with my operas. So that was a commission piece. And it was something I felt strongly about. It was the first opera that I didn't write my own libretto. But the connections are really important. So, however, I have to say that the way I got the connection with Cleveland Opera, even though I lived there, was by sending a cold, there was a call from the Hartford Opera Theater for scenes. They didn't know me. I sent in my scenes, I got a performance. I think even going back further, so I was able to get my first opera staged because teaching in Hiram College, a donor came in, gave a endowment for opera. As soon as I was able to take over the opera workshop program, I did, and I knew right then, okay, now I have to compose an opera because this is an opportunity. I know I can get a stage. I know who my students are. So again, when I'm talking about perspective, I wrote so that I knew that it would succeed in that venue with those students, and it did. And I knew that I could also then it would work not just there but other places. So it's like this long process. And I mean, I have then, life happens and, you get interrupted, but it's really, I found it really important to nurture relationships. I think everybody knows this, and because it's really through personal, when people know you, that you can be fortunate and have things, just send off things to competitions and so on, but once people know that they can work with you, it helps a lot. So
Thank you. Judith Shayton worked with glaciologists for her Ice Becomes Water. They took sounds from field recordings that were shared by the glaciologists. And obviously this is about climate change, right? And indirectly, so is Gabriella Frank's Contested Eden. And if you haven't seen this video of this is amazing. She works with dancers in a scorched earth kind of environment. And I know that the wildfires in Northern California 3 or 4 years ago came very, very close to her home. She lives in outside of Berkeley. She lives in Anderson Valley in the wine country. So she has a farm out there. Alex Shapiro, Breathe. This was really about COVID and the fact that we were wearing masks and George Floyd and all of these things put together, and the political circus that we were all watching. It just felt like we were suffocating. And she wrote this piece about to breathe, because she felt like we needed to take a breath and we were just being suffocated, and how can we get out of that? It was a very moving piece. And Joan, Shadow and Light, she did this about Alzheimer's, and I've seen the video of this, but I haven't seen the actual piece, and it's supposed to be absolutely riveting in person. So these are just some examples of people that, pieces that work with, you take passion and then you take perspective and then you try to connect with people. And Dawn really pointed it out. All of this has to do with meeting with people. So Ted, if you'll go to the next one. So going to it, it's creating opportunity starts with, well, you have to have some good pieces out there. You have to write, you have to believe in yourself. And then you meet people where they are. So going to conferences, and it's really tough right now because with climate change and with everything that's going on, there's a lot of us that are going, oh, do I need to really go to all these conferences? Do I need to show up in person? And I think I'm pulling back. I'm probably traveling half as much as I did before, but I'm still traveling a little bit. Where I think it's really important or else I won't have the connections to make something work. But I did skip the ACDA this year as well. Be interested, to be interesting, and come with swag. So I've got these little cards, and they're business cards, and they have the QR code on the back. And then I've got, oh, let me go get them. Just a second. I'm going to get a postcard. Oh. I didn't plan this part very well, but so I'll also hand out postcards because people say, I don't know if you can see this, Ted, but it just has me, but it has who I am, and what have I done lately, and how to find me. So that people say, and this isn't, you can't put this in your wallet and lose it. So this takes up enough space that, okay, they're going to have to, when they get back from the conference or whatever, they're going to actually have to look at it again. So it's just a way of putting yourself out there. Online presence, a website where people can see, listen, and buy. And it's a process, right? So it's not as easy to do all of it. It takes time to get there. Post on social media, including YouTube. There's a lot, I don't have a lot on YouTube, and I need to do this. This is something I need to do more of, where I don't have live performances of some of my coolest pieces. So, you've seen them now where they have like the video of the score rolling, but they have it on YouTube. And people are more likely to go to YouTube to see the score and listen to it at the same time than they are to go to SoundCloud and try to open the score in issue. Because then you have to do two places, and then you have to coordinate it. So doing it that way. And then the other thing is celebrate the growth and success of others. So Boulanger Initiative today launched a new database of women composers. And right now it's just deceased women composers. They're working on updating the database in the next year or so with living women composers, but it's a really big thing. So on my Facebook page, I put congratulations to Boulanger Initiative and their new database, and then I shared it with everybody. So again, you really take the time to celebrate the growth and success of others, not just because it's going to look good on you, but you want to, as you're developing relationships, you want to have community. You want to be happy for the success of other people. You want to be excited for them, and you want to be a part of that. And then a lot of you are on the board, so join a board, adjudicate, volunteer, get involved with, this organization, Cascadia, or another organization where you can meet people, other composers, performers, all sorts of people. Okay, next.
Yes, we need board members.
Pardon me? We need more board members? Yeah. I'm gonna be kind of board membered out for a little while after this year.
Or just volunteers.
Pardon me? There's volunteers, yes. So creating opportunities. We've already talked about going to conferences, and I'm doing more in virtually. And I'm planning IWM's next conference, and it will be available virtually as well as in person, and attend concerts. And I have to admit personally that since the pandemic, I'm still only going to about half of what I used to go to. I'm still not going to as many. It's like the bigger they are, I'm kind of staying home, but I hope to get back to where I was. Participate in music festivals, take a class. I'm meeting people I would not have met except for this Partimenti class. So I talked to a woman named Stacy Fabian, who's, I forgot where she is. And so, it's you get to meet other people, and celebrate and learn about what they do. And Dawn mentioned the call for scores and competitions. I have a question mark there because to some degree it's a numbers game, and some degree it's like, on one hand, I'm going to get my piece in front of people that, may know me, and maybe it's going to give me an opportunity. On the other hand, it seems like I've maybe gotten something from one or two of those over the last 10 years. And sometimes you think, is it even worth it? So now what I do is I only apply for those that I really, really want to. And it's like one or two, maybe a year. Artist residencies, participate in artist residencies. And there is a plethora of artist residencies, and apply for grants. So again, what are the things that you can do to create opportunities for yourself? Okay, so next page. So I just listed some artist residencies, and Ted, I just thought of this. I had not planned on sharing this whole deck because it includes some other slides at the end that I wasn't going to share. But if you'd like, I could take some of these slides and then pass them on to you for other people to share as well. But Res Arts is a great one. It has all these open calls. Now it is for visual artists as well. So you've got to kind of go through the selections to find ones that are for composers only. But the Composer Now has a creative residency. Copeland House, of course, is just for composers. And Pine Meadow Ranch, I did that in 2021, and that was a very cool one. It's in Sisters, Oregon. And then Visby. I know Liz had asked me about Visby. And so how did I get to go to Visby? Well, I applied. I just applied. I had to write a letter. And I had a couple people who'd gone before, like Dawn, who I, mentioned. And so I got a grant from the state of Oregon. Go to the next page because I have grants on the next page. I got a grant from the Oregon Arts Commission that paid for my airfare. And I'm not sure I would have done or be doing the piece that I'm working on now if it weren't for this grant and for the application to Visby. So I'm writing this piece called Life Across the Sea, and I can show it to you in a little bit when we're done with the presentation. And I've gotten one grant from RAC. There's always the Oregon Community Foundation. I applied 2 or 3 times, haven't gotten it. And some of these others I've applied for and haven't gotten them, but it's you never know. You never know. So keep going. So I have info, some links here, and then again, Ted, I can get you some 3 or 4 of these slides that have links and then send them to you if anybody is interested. And I think that's the last one. Let's see, is there a slide after this? Dark. Okay, that's it. That's it.
Right.
So if you could stop sharing, I wanted to show a couple things that are on my desktop. And let me get to my desktop and I can share that. Okay. Share screen. Desktop. Hopefully this will let me do it. Nope. It's not going to let me do it. Oh, well. If you went to Lisa Neer's website and clicked on the heading Bassoon Sonata Consortium, she's just had premiered her new sonata for bassoon and piano. And it was commissioned by a consortium of bassoonists. And I'd seen a piece she had written for a bassoon player, I'm not sure how long ago, 2 or 3 years ago, maybe right before the pandemic. And, you develop a relationship like Dawn was talking about. People get to know you. And so she'd evidently gotten a relationship with a bassoonist. The bassoonist tells their friends, they tell their friends. And all of a sudden she got 19 people to sign on for her consortium. So, I mean, that's just wonderful. And it's just one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. On my own website, do I have this up? Yeah, on my own website, mine just says consortium. I should change the title to Life Across the Sea. And so I have a lead commissioner who's at Winona State University in Minnesota. So I had done years ago, I had done a pro bono piece because she started this program called Building Bridges that was creating concerto type style pieces, like little 2 to 3 minute pieces for beginning wind band and a teenage soloist. And they have some that are vice versa, you know, a grade 3 wind band with a elementary soloist. And so I had done a 3-minute piece called The Coast in Winter for beginning wind band, grade 1 to 2, and a high school violist. And she liked it so much that when it came time to asking about consortium, she just signed right up. So again, it was that relationship that I had developed years ago that led to my current situation. So it's like all these little baby steps, you know. So how can we one, write something we believe in? And when we believe in it, we share that enthusiasm and we try to have different perspectives. And as Dawn was saying, you know, who are you writing for? And sometimes you don't know that. But you do know what type of ensemble you're writing for and what their general audience is. And then, you know, when you believe in something and you believe in yourself, then you take action steps and your behaviors change in a more positive direction that are going to create opportunities for you down the road, which is really the point of what all I'm trying to say today. So, what questions do you have? Thoughts?
Thank you so much. It's so relevant for me. It's coming at the right time. And I am very interested to see those slides and the list of residencies and grants. All that would be awesome.
Okay, sure. Liz, any comments?
Oh, I'm thinking of a dozen of things, and I think I probably should not start on any, or I'll won't know where to stop. Yeah, you sparked some interest in a lot of things. But, I too would like to list. I tried to do screen share and I hit the wrong button, so I didn't screen share. I'm not screen share. Taking a picture, a snapshot of the screen, whatever it was. But yeah, I would like to have that list. And I suppose when we have this on our YouTube, then we could get all of this too. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
So in general, what are people looking at when they look at different applications for residency? What's important there?
And everyone is different. And I just applied for a McKnight visiting fellow residency. And what they are looking for is completely different than my Pine Meadow residency. I think you have to connect with the place or the goals. So the McKnight Foundation has certain priorities, certain funding priorities. So I focused in on environmental stewardship is one of their goals. And so I tied in, since I like nature, I tied in to music, writing music about something having to do with environmental stewardship. So I think it's important to know what is important to the organization for the residency, or even if you're answering a call for scores, what is important to them. But that's what I really look for first is, and a lot of them I pass by because, well, okay, that's not what I'm doing right now, or that's not me. But it's really, what are they looking for? And one of the things they were looking for was creativeness and imagination and thinking outside the box. I have no idea if the judges will think I'm creative, imaginative, or think outside the box. And I don't know. I'm not going to change who I am for that, but that's what they all look for, something different. And I think you have to see what their goals and priorities are when you write that application. And same thing with grants. You know, when I've written something for RAC, what is important? And engagement is very important to them. How am I going to connect with the people of Portland? Do I have a audience engagement factor in here? And for my trip to Visby, I connected my subject to Oregon and focused on the Scandinavian immigrants and their love of nature, and how has that influenced the ethos of the Pacific Northwest and our care for nature. So again, I'm tying it into my passion with what is important to them. So sometimes there's alignment and sometimes there just isn't. Betty, do you have any thoughts? Since you've been up since 3 o'clock this morning.
I think my thoughts are very dull right now.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Anybody else?
Well,
Thank
I
you.
want to say thank you for the presentation, Christina.
You're
I'm really tired today and my brain is not. I don't have Betty's excuse, but I'm taking it in, but I can't give anything back tonight. But I really enjoyed
that's what the
being able to
replay's
listen
for.
to you.
That's what the replay's for, right? That you get to watch it later.
Right, I can go back and I can check all those links, which I
Right.
want to do.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay. Well, if there's not anything else, I can get the information to Ted and pass it on to you. And again, it will be on the replay.
Cool.
Just want to add my thanks. I mean, some of these things are, I mean, we all kind of know a lot of these things, right? But they're good to hear periodically. It's good to be reminded, and then there's always some new things too. So thank you.
I'm sure.
Thank you, Christina. That was very interesting. That was a very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I am getting you out before 9 o'clock.
I'm going to sign off. Bye, everybody.
Okay.
We're all
Bye.
tired.
Bye, thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.